and thanks for joining me again in the garden. This week I'm going over what's happening with the squash in the yard and some of the other cucurbits that I have. This is my trellis that just a couple weeks ago when I was showing you the video, it was really full and I was calling it the haunted house trellis. Well, a lot of it has died back. You'll see a lot of yellowing leaves. Now, this isn't actually disease. I think that a majority of this is due to the heat. July was really hot, super dry, so it took a real good toll on the larger leaves for the melons, a larger leaf for the squash. Additionally, I had to rip out one of the plants that was in there, and I don't know where the lines crisscross for all of my plants, but I think that some of the yellowing is attributed to the removal of that plant. So it doesn't look as good as it did just a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not too concerned. I'm going to try to trim as much as I can over the next coming weeks, but I don't want to interfere with the stuff that is growing. And most of the green is on the other side now. So I'm going to go inside the trellis and then take you to the other side to show you what I mean. In here, inside of the trellis, it is a totally different environment than what it was. When I was in here before, I was moving branches and leaves out of the way. And on the inside, it's much cleaner because of all of the leaves that were dying back. I do also have kind of a mystery in the garden. I thought the plant that was here was supporting this newer gourd that's on the other side, which I'll show. But that vine is still doing fine. This plant had white cream of the crop on it, even though it's supposed to be carnival. And then I know these two have cushaw because I could track the lines and see the cushaw. But I don't know where this green gourd is coming from. So either this plant grew a white fruit and then grew green, or one of these isn't what I thought, because the new gourd that came out, like I said, has a lime green start, and that's nothing that's been on these vines before. And kinda on the other side of my fight with squash bugs, I don't come out and see as many eggs, and as I say that, I see some here. I don't see as many eggs, I don't see as many bugs, so it's been tiring. I have so much garden fatigue when it comes to the squash bugs, but I still have to fight against them because I don't want my garden to be overrun. So now let's move to the other side and see what my raised bed did in my newest garden fail. So this right here is my garden fail. You might say, why are you calling it a garden fail? And it's not because of how green everything is over here. And this is basically what's coming off the trellis. So this side looks a little bit better than the other side because it seems like all the newer growth is over here. But it grew all in this bed and all down the side. And this was the bed where I planted turnips and beets. And I thought I was gonna get shade. I didn't think I was gonna get overrun. So I don't have a lot of turnips and beets that popped up in this, unfortunately, but I do have a real that's in here, right over here, and I have a royal golden melon right here, and everything else in here is doing fine. I'm getting a bunch of popping up that need to be, I'm pollinating them, so apparently this is going to turn into a bed that's going to be for whatever this gourd is in here. The cushaw part I had to cut, I think, but it's still producing. I'm not sure what direction I want to lead this to because I don't know how to get it back to the trellis, so it's just coming over here. Another thing that's kind of a garden mystery is what's going on with the royal golden. Right here is the royal golden. Aside from that one big one that's in the raised bed where it shouldn't be, all of them get about that size and then get pushed to maturity. They're not rotting, they're not soft, they're just ripening too quickly, and I don't know what that means. Again, I don't know if heat is an indicator, but so far I've only got one that's gotten to size. Over here I have the trellis where the cucumber were, so the cucumbers are completely gone here. I do have that other set further down on this side. But what I'm going to do here now is get some of my compost, top this off with my compost, and then I'm going to be planting carrots in here within a week or so, just so that I can have a fall crop of carrots, hopefully, since I didn't have any crop of carrot when it came to the spring. This tomato that's here, it didn't do terribly, but I know that the lack of sunlight, because it gets shaded out by this trellis over here and by this tree, so I believe that the lack of real good sunlight affected it, because normally this is a Rutgers type tomato. These are very prolific. I usually have tons and tons of tomatoes, but to only have like 6 or 7 tomatoes on here is very strange. Moving on down, I have the lemon squash, and with this one, it's very tall, and the fruit, I realized, start off yellow. Normally when you see the yellow fruit on the squash, it means that something's wrong, but this one starts off yellow. So the female on this one hasn't opened up yet, waiting for it to open, but these had a 55-day maturity, so they should have been mature by August, but with the warmer temperatures and the warmer soil temps, these popped pretty early and started putting out some fruit. And this is the Zappolito. I already have 3 females that have been pollinating on this one, and they're growing. I'm excited to see how that looks and how that tastes, but this one definitely I like because it's very compact, it is growing quickly, and it put out females pretty quickly. So the only one that doesn't have anything is what was this one? I believe this was the long white of Palermo. It doesn't have any flowers except for males. I don't see any females coming up on this one. One of the mistakes that I did in here was that I put them in peas instead of using cages. I only had 1 extra cage, so that's why that one up there, the lemon, has a cage. But I know for next year to cage these instead of putting them in a teepee, because I can't wrap them around a teepee. These have 3 watermelon in here, which I am so excited about because my melons did horribly on the trellises. I only got 1 or 2 really small ones, and having some watermelon makes me really happy. And these are going to be smaller ones, maybe about a pound or 2. They're not supposed to get super large. Again, I'm in zone 6B, 7A. I planted these in July, and I'm still getting a harvest. It won't be a prolific or really big harvest, but I am still going to get a harvest from all of these 3 things that I planted. And I noticed that they didn't get overrun like the other trellises did with squash bugs, because I did plant them at the end. I was able to combat them pretty quickly, and so that's one thing to be said about late season planting for squashes. If you still have the time, you want to pick ones that have a shorter growing season, and that'll get you to a harvest fast. So this trellis over here is faring a bit better than the trellis on the other side. It has some maturing squash on the outside. So these are orange butternut squash. I've got 3 in a row, actually 4 in a row right here. And this one is the first one to show a blush of orange on it. It takes a really long time, it seems, for them to turn orange. They're larger than my regular butternut squash, but outside here you can see there's yellow leaves here and there, powdery mildew. I'm cutting everything back. Doesn't look as bad. Not much fruit here, but that's because it's just starting to come back up from what I put in the ground to have it come back up on this side. I have a butternut squash here, butternut squash here, down here as well too. So there's, I thought there was 4. Oh yeah, there's 1 here too. I don't know, it's being blocked by the post. So I have 4 on this side, plus 1 more on the ground, like 1 or 2 more on the ground up front. So I have a bunch of fruit right here because there's acorn squash right at the opening as well. Down the trellis, it looks empty, and that's because I picked all of the acorn squash and the regular butternut squash. The orange butternut squash are here and here. They came up later, There's also one way back here, which you can't really see. But there's 3 butternut squash that are in here. So there's still the cantaloupe over here, but I picked the watermelons that were there. Only the sugar baby is left in here for the melons. So inside it's kind of empty and it's not as untamed as it was before. So on this side of the trellis, there's one large butternut squash here, another large butternut squash down here. They're growing in such funny shapes. And I've got another butternut down here. And over here, I've got my weird colored acorn. I've got 2 acorn squash. Now these both, they're not on the same acorn line, but they look like orange again, which I'm trying to figure out. I don't do much to this one besides staking it up and trimming down the suckers, just as a comparison to see, but it doesn't get a lot of sun because this gets shaded. It shades it for the most part, and then once it does get sun, it gets about 2 or 3 hours of sunlight. And before I go, I wanted to share with you squash bugs eggs. So this is what squash bugs egg look like. They tend to lay them on the vine or veins, in between the veins of the plant, and they're usually in a pattern. They can range in amber color to kind of like this creamish color, and I'm sure that probably has to do with maturity and how long they've been around. But when you see these, you want to squish them. You can take duct tape and take them off, or you can take the whole leaf off. I don't have a problem taking this leaf because this leaf has powdery mildew. This isn't the variegated pattern that should be on this leaf because it's an acorn squash leaf, but I take it and I smash them. So if you plant squash, look out for these, and if you see them, get rid of them. And lastly, I'm just going to share a video of us cutting open the 20-pound watermelon my mother grew. It's a Yamato Cream. It's got a white interior, and this was one of the juiciest watermelons I had tried all season long. Mine did not get to this size at all, so I wanted to share what we grew in her garden. I really do appreciate it if you stuck to the end of this video. If you enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching.